Jai Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranam, dear devotees. Welcome to the Bhaktivaibhava class. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 8. Let's begin with the Mangala Charana. Please join with the prayers. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Shakshurum Militan Yena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitan Yena Bhutale Swayan Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsjam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikpradha Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kali Dvanto Ditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Paramananda Pataya Premavarksha Aksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishna Yanamastume Made Kavando Matsangin Madguro Mamahadana Manishtaraka Madhvagya Madananda Namastute Asadu Sadhu Tadayim Atini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Kadachimam Premna Ritkanta Yospura Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Gonna move on straight away without doing a recap today because there was some complications with the joining and we're running out of time. So
Hare
basically,
Krishna Prabhuji, sorry to interrupt. Your voice is little slow. Actually, I am unable to hear.
really, can you hear now better?
Yeah, much better.
Much better, okay. Let me just put this properly. Okay, so basically I will just make the connection. We heard from Lord Brahma the different scheduled incarnations, and then now Parikshit is asking further questions to Sukadeva Goswami. Parikshit Maharaj is glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this question basically is entitled Questions by King Parikshit. He's going to ask, I believe, like 23 questions, and that will be the answer to the questions will be given subsequently. But we will find that the answers to these questions actually constitute the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so the connection verse is, how did Narada, after being instructed in the transcendental science, carry out Lord Brahma's request to expand that messages? Desiring to know this, Parikshit Maharaj will ask further questions. Okay, so we actually discuss up until verse number 5. So we'll recite verse number 6, which is a very beautiful verse from the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tau Tatma Purusha Krishna Pada Mula Namunchati Mukta Sarva Pariklesha Panta Swa Sharanam Yata. A pure devotee of the Lord, whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service, never relinquishes the lotus feet of the Lord, Krishna, for they fully satisfy him as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. Prabhupada writes in the purport, this example set herein is very, second paragraph, the example set herein is very appropriate. And Prabhupada explains that, just as a traveler who is left home to work, and he's he's coming back, and sometimes we have to undergo like a lot of austerity and troubles during the journey. But even though the journey may be unpleasant, because the meditation is on getting there, is getting to that destination, then we are able to basically endure any kind of difficulties. I particularly remember, I I travel a lot in India also by train. Years ago, I used to go by train everywhere, and the journeys were very, very austere. Sometimes, like from from Mayapur to Mumbai, for example, that's like a couple of days. But the meditation will be there that, okay, uh, when I get there, I'm going to meet the devotees, I'm going to see the deities, I'm going to be in a holy place. And we will be able to, forget about the obstacles, about the difficulties of the journey. In fact, the journey becomes pleasant just because we're going back, we're reaching our destination. So similarly, for one, and in this verse, Kim Parikshit is explaining that, yeah, once that we have actually experienced Krishna's mercy in our hearts, then it's very hard to give it up. It's just basically because we have experienced that satisfaction, we want more of that, and therefore whatever price we have to pay to get that same mercy again is a small price. And basically in the journey back home, back to Godhead, I remember years ago I was chanting japa in the samadhi, Prabhupada samadhi here in Mayapur, and Bhavananda Prabhu came. Bhavananda Prabhu, very senior Prabhupada disciple, who was very instrumental in uh, establishing this project here in Mayapur. And we were chanting japa, and he just came, and he's a very like extrovert, charismatic personality, and he just kind of more or less interrupted our japa. He was making some comments, but then he said that the journey back home is a very long way back home, back to Godhead, and it is a fact that it is a long, long journey back. But the more we understand the value of what our objective and our goal is, the more insignificant appear all the different difficulties that we have to undergo. And I'm saying this also at the beginning of this chapter today, because what we're going to hear, not in chapter 8 so much, but in chapter 9, we're going to hear about a description of the spiritual world. And this should act as an impetus for us to, become serious in our practices of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada writes at the end of the purport, he says that certainly there are many troubles for the traveler when he is in such unknown places, but all such troubles are at once mitigated as soon as the sense of his family affection is remembered. And as soon as he returns home, he forgets all such troubles on the way. A pure devotee of the Lord is exactly in a family tie with the Lord, and therefore he is undeterred in discharging his duty in a full affectionate tie with the Lord. I remember His Holiness Indayuna Swami was relating the story when he traveled from the US to Europe. I don't remember if he was coming from France, but anyway, they arrived in London with Prabhupada. He actually was traveling on the same plane, sitting next to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's luggage was delayed. So he was requested by the devotees to stay behind in the airport to pick up the luggage, Prabhupada's luggage, and take it to the temple. So it was raining, and he had to travel all the way on his own from the airport to the temple. He didn't know where he was. It was the first time for him in England, coming from the US. It was a whole ordeal. And the most austere thing came that when he arrived at the temple, the class was over, the welcoming, reception was over, prasadam was over. It was so disappointing, And then he had to take the suitcase all the way up to Prabhupada's rooms on the top floor, and everybody was busy. No one could help him, so he had, he took the suitcase, with great difficulty, and came into Prabhupada's room and put it there. And then Prabhupada wasn't there when he brought the suitcase by name, and then Prabhupada, appeared. He came, and then he bowed down and paid obeisances to Prabhupada. And then while he was paying obeisances, Prabhupada tapped on his back, and he said something he couldn't hear. But Nanda Kishore Prabhu, who was Nanda Kumar Prabhu, who was the Prabhupada's servant, he said, "Wow, Prabhupada says something to you really wonderful." And he said that, so much trouble here in the material world, just to do a small thing. But when I take you back home, everything will be very simple, very easy and sublime. So, yeah, material life means trouble. Even as devotees, we have to undergo so much difficulty. But we are very reassured that we will when we get back to Krishna, all these problems will be forgotten. All right, text number 7. So now we're going to hear about the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. Of course, the chapter mainly is the questions by Parikshit Maharaj. We had some beautiful verses of glorification, also about the fruits of hidden Srimad Bhagavatam, and King Parikshit will also end up the chapter with some glorification. But I would like to do a little brainstorm in terms of what some of the questions by King Parikshit. And I'm doing this basically because that will help us to assimilate those questions a little more than me just reading them. And the electricity here is really bad. It just keeps going on. Okay, so what are some of the questions that Parikshit Maharaj asked? And you can unmute yourself, you can type on the chat box. Let's hear. Just to make sure that you all read it. Okay, Vira Gopal Prabhu, go ahead.
My pranams. Actually, I am cheating because I wrote these things down.
Okay, just tell us one without looking at the paper.
How is it that the soul, which is spiritual, achieve a material body?
Good. That was the first question. Okay. And that question is going to be answered at the beginning of chapter 9. It's very important question, is it not? How the spirit soul who is pure got here in the first place? Okay. Vinay Damodar. When the living entity is different from the body, then how it came in contact with the body? Okay, bye. Mahamani Madhumati. How did the jiva? Okay, everybody's getting the same question. It's a very important question, right? Murli Manohar Prabhu, the Lord created from his own body. How does it that different from the common person? Okay, the Lord created from his own body. The question is not very clear now. I know what the question that you're referring to.
Yeah, I think I mean, I get a sense that the question is being asked because there's expansions from the Lord's body, but also children expand from the human body.
Uh-huh.
So I think perhaps he's asking a question in that regard.
The question basically is, how is the form of the Lord different from the form of Lord Brahma?
Okay, yeah, that's
the question. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mahavira Prabhu. Okay, he put it. Vinay Damodar put it there actually. What is the difference between the body of Brahma, living entity, and the Virat Rupa of the Lord? Question. Okay, now I didn't ask about the groups yet. Someone started with that yet. Now explain about the time and the difference, about various dharmas. The Lord is living in everyone's heart as a super soul. How does the Lord is unaffected by the external energy? What are the conclusions of various scriptures? They're all very interesting questions, isn't it? Very, very interesting. And it's also worth to mention again that Parikshit Maharaj is, in his last, is waiting, is going to die. This is just before he's dying, and he's so inquisitive. He inquired about Varnashram Dharma, about the Nitya Siddhas. Okay. Now, out of the different planetary systems, I also asked you to group the questions in different themes. Did anybody do this? What are the different themes that Parikshit Maharaj is asking about? Mahamani and Madhumati, Mataji? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear? Yeah. We grouped into was a difference between the Jiva and the Lord.
Okay.
And that's from 7 shloka number 7 to 10.
Okay.
And also grouped into Kala and Karma for the theme 3. That's between number 12 to 14.
Okay.
And creation, grouped as creation for 15 to 19 shloka.
Okay.
And then theme 6 is like Bhakti, which is 20 and 21 verse. And then about the Pralaya as well, like what happens, activities after Pralaya, the reappearance.
Nice. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well done. Yamastami Prabhu, you have another group of set of questions. Did it match with what she did? You're muted, please.
I didn't follow everything that she said. I didn't group it, as clearly as she did. I just kind of I developed like 7 themes, and then I placed questions under them, but they weren't always consecutive. So I had questions about Narada Muni. That was only one. That was the first verse. And then requests for Sukadev Goswami's mercy. That's the 3rd verse and the 24th verse. And then questions about the jiva. Jivas, their trajectories within the Ekapad Vibhuti, including facilities enabling them to achieve perfection. And I have a whole bunch of verses on that one. I don't know if...
No problem.
Should I just leave?
I'm hearing an echo there. Do you have a speaker there or something? No, it's okay. Okay, it's okay now. So what other groups you have? What other groups of questions?
Okay, so that last question, the last group that I said, I don't know if you got that or the echo got you. Questions about the jiva.
Yeah, I got that.
Their trajectory. This is one theme.
Yeah.
Their trajectories within the Ekapad Vibhuti, including facilities enabling them to achieve perfection.
Yeah.
And then questions about the Lord.
Yeah.
And questions about the Virat Purusha. Questions
Very good.
about Kala. Yeah, that was there was only one. That was 11.
But it's there. That's good.
Questions about Kala, and then questions about Sarga and Visarga.
Nice. Well done. Okay, Mahavira Prabhu, you have anything else to add to that? Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I did a different categorization because I tried to read the questions and understand and try to group based on the themes as you mentioned. So I first, there may be some similarities, some difference. So I will say whatever I have done. So difference, first question was difference between the Lord and the living entity. Second was actual position.
I'm not looking for the questions themselves. I'm looking for the themes.
Yeah, themes I am saying.
No, you didn't. You just told me a question. What is the theme of that question?
Okay, so the first theme is that the questions about the Lord and Jiva.
Okay.
And second theme is actual position of planets and governors in universal form of Lord.
Okay.
And third is questions related to time.
Yes.
Or Kala.
Yes.
Then fourth is questions related to karmic activities, destinations according to the activities and type of various bodies acquired.
Very good.
Then fifth is common religion of all classes of human beings, their occupational duties.
Okay.
Then sixth is creation of various places in universe, its inhabitants.
Okay.
And the last and the seventh theme is conclusion of all Vedas.
Did you do this by yourself?
Yes.
Very good. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Veera Gopal Prabhu, you have something else? Or I think we covered most of the themes now. Do you have something to add to that?
Perhaps it was to do with the Lord's Leelas and Yoga Maya.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay, so I have made a little list here about the questions by Parikshit Maharaj. How does the transcendental soul acquire a material body? What is the difference between the gigantic? I'm not going for the themes yet. Okay, the themes come later. I'm just going through the questions. What is the difference between the gigantic body of the Lord as the Purusha and the bodies of the living entities? Clear? If the questions are clear, right? We are understanding what the questions are. Is Brahma's body directly born from the Lord, of the same quality of the Lord's body? Please explain the super soul in everyone's heart. Explain in more detail about how the planets and their protectors are located in the Virat Rupa. Explain the nature and measurement of time and how it affects the demigods, human beings, etc. How is the living entity affected by karma and the gunas? Please describe the universal geography with the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants. Please describe the various yugas, their durations, their dharmas, and the astonishing activities of the yuga avatars. Explain the general and specific duties for all men, both in normal conditions and in emergency situations. Please enumerate the elements of creation and describe their principal qualities as well as their effects. What are the opulences of the great mystics, and what is their ultimate realization? What are the conclusions of the Vedas, Upavedas, Itihasas, and Puranas? Describe how Krishna carries out pastimes using his yoga maya, and after creating a special pastimes of disappearance, remains indifferent to them, like a superficial witness. Okay? So these are some of the questions. Now, the groups. First, please instruct me about the teachings of Narada Muni. Please instruct me that, all the different groups that you made, they're also valid. They're, when we are doing this type of exercise, there, you know, like sometimes we get different study guides, and we get like you know, different divisions for the chapters, because the criteria used is being different. So anyway, this is one criteria. Okay, please instruct me about the personality of Godhead. Please instruct me about the individual living entities. Instruct me about material nature, about time, about karma, about dharma. So we see Parikshit Maharaj was very, very inquisitive about, oops. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I see the previous slide, the last two slide, last line, which you mentioned, point number, I'll say, it was basically the 8th point, or you may just say, repeat the 8th point. I will note it down.
Which 8th point?
In the questions, you have the questions, the first slide.
Okay, 8.
Yeah.
Please describe the universal geography with the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as the different kinds of inhabitants. Which canto is this described on? This will be described in Canto 5.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. So stop sharing. Okay. Was I sharing the screen there? Did you see the screen or not?
No.
Oh, you didn't. I'm sorry.
Yes, we saw.
Anyway, never mind. I'm gonna send you the outline for this. So no worries. No worry about it. Okay, so let's read. I'm just gonna pick up a few verses from this chapter, and then we can move on. Okay, so now we'll go back to text number 7. All learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul, is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you? Purport. Maharaj Pariksit, being a typical devotee, is not only satisfied by confirming the importance of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the representative of Brahmaji by disciplic cessation, but he's still more anxious to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so he has explained, he has glorified and praised the importance of hearing in the previous verses. Now, through this questioning, he is trying to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the sign of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, all questions that may arise in the mind of a serious student must be cleared by the statements of the authority. So, establishing the philosophical basis of the Srimad Bhagavatam is going to take place in next chapter with the Chatusloki Bhagavatam. Now, I'm going to move down to the next, the last paragraph in this purport, and Prabhupada writes, in the process of devotional service, the first step is to take shelter of the spiritual master and then inquire from the spiritual master all about the process. Okay? Bhagavad Gita verse to explain this.
Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya.
Very good. Okay, so there are 2 elements being described here so far, right? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So one must approach a spiritual master and one must inquire from him. There are 3 elements in the relationship guru-disciple. Submission, which means that approaching the spiritual master with a submissive spirit, inquire from him, and service. These 3 elements constitute the relationship between guru-disciple. And Parikshit Maharaj, as the perfect disciple, he's asking so many questions with submission. Now, this is a famous sentence. He says, this inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service. Even if one is fixed in devotional service like Maharaj Parikshit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master all about this. In other words, the spiritual master must also be well-versed and learned so that he may be able to answer all these inquiries from the devotees. Thus, one who is not well-versed in the authorized scriptures and not able to answer all such relevant inquiries should not pose as a spiritual master for the matter of material gain. It is illegal to become a spiritual master if one is unable to deliver the disciple. So any comments? What do you understand when Prabhupada says that this inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service? How do we understand this? Do we want immunity from all kinds of offenses? Definitely, right? So how is it related? Anyone can give us some thoughts on this? Murli Manohar Prabhu.
Strikes me as being in one's inquiring into the details of the process. Then that in itself will educate one to avoid offenses. So it should be submissively, like we should know, we should inquire into the science of devotion and practice it properly and therefore not make offenses.
Precise. You know, it's such a you could say complete science of bhakti. So many things are there, and the devotee who is actually serious on the path, naturally he will have so many questions. His enthusiasm and his eagerness to practice is expressed through that questioning, because we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to make mistakes. So when someone is inquisitive, that pleases the spiritual master very much. Why? Because that it shows certain desire to actually, you know, practice devotional service with great care and with great attention to the details. Mahavira Prabhu, you have something different to add to this?
Actually, it was similar only, like once we understand that what are the offenses, then the problem comes how to avoid them. So avoiding is much more important than just knowing it. So, and if we do not avoid, then it is a kind of mad elephant offense, and then it creates a havoc in the devotional service. So it is very important, like, so spiritual master can help us understand how to avoid. So that's where I was trying to comment.
Yeah, it's similar point. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Okay, text 8. So this question we're going to discuss, you know, the beginning of chapter 9, the answer is given. Now, text 8. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose abdomen the lotus stem sprouted, is possessed of a gigantic body according to his own caliber and measurement, then what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and of those of common living entities? One should note how Maharaj Parikshit intelligently put questions before his spiritual master for scientific understanding of the transcendental body of the Lord. It has been described in many places. Okay, anyway, we won't read the whole purport, but I'll go right to the bottom. It says, similarly, okay, if the personality of Godhead assumes a gigantic body to accommodate the universes or the planets of a particular universe, there is no difference in the principle of assuming or accepting a particular type of body in terms of necessity. A living being, okay, you have read the whole purport, but anyway, just focus on this now. A living being and the Lord cannot be distinguished simply by the difference in the magnitude of the body. So the answer depends on the specific significance of the body of the Lord as distinguished from the body of a common living being. So the answer to this question is going to also be given in chapter 9. Just out of curiosity, you know the answer to this question? How Sukadeva Goswami is going to answer this? It's a very interesting way to reply to this. Anyone got that from reading chapter 9? Okay, so I'll put it on hold to keep the excitement when we come to chapter 9. we'll discuss it. Most likely we'll discuss it either today or tomorrow. Okay. Anyway, the basic difference is that Brahma had to actually meditate. Brahma had to meditate to see the form of the Lord. Right? He had to perform great austerity and great tapasya, because otherwise he could not see the form of the Lord. So therefore it's explained that the form of the Lord is different from that of the living entity, because Brahma had to engage in devotional service to see it. So it's not made of matter, it's transcendental, and it can be seen only through revelation. Okay, Brahma, who was not born of a material source, but of the lotus flower coming out of the navel abdomen of the Lord, is the creator of all those who are materially born. Of course, by the grace of the Lord, Brahma was able to see the form of the Lord. Okay, so then it just goes on with some of the questions we have already kind of brainstormed. I'm just gonna move forward a little bit with some of the verses. Yeah, text 14. It says, then again, kindly describe how the proportionate accumulation of the reactions resulting from the different modes of material nature act upon the desiring living being, promoting or degrading him among the different species of life, beginning from the demigods down to the most insignificant creatures. So halfway through the purport, it says how such actions and reactions, basically karma, take place, what the different procedures are, and in what proportion they act are all subject matters of Maharaj Parikshit's inquiries from the great Brahmana Sukadeva Goswami. So basically, how different living entities are placed in different situations. We're going to see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in fact, one of the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam is Sthanam. And we'll see that actually Sthanam, Bhagavatam describes as the victory of the Lord of Vaikuntha, because everybody is perfectly situated. Okay? Everybody is perfectly situated according to their actions, according to their desires. So Maharaj Parikshit's question here is, how does that take place? It's very good. We think about it, it's very good question. We are seeing, different people, they are born in a particular favorable situation. Some people are born in a very unfavorable situation. Some are rich, some are beautiful, some are ugly, some are educated. How does this all takes place? That's a question by Parikshit Maharaj. Yamashami Prabhu. Yeah.
Where were you reading from? I couldn't find it in the purport.
I was just explaining. I didn't read.
Oh.
Well, I mean, there was the question. The question was, I read the question from the first paragraph. Not a question. It's just the last sentence in the first paragraph I read, but I was just explaining.
Okay.
Okay.
You said it was halfway down, and I just couldn't find what you were doing.
It's halfway. It was halfway down the first paragraph. Sorry,
Oh.
if I wasn't clear. Text number 16. It says, also please describe the inner and outer space of the universe by specific divisions, as well as the character and activities of the great souls, and also the characteristics of the different classifications of the castes and orders of life. Prabhupada writes in the purport, it's a few lines down the first paragraph. Those who are of the opinion that the devotees of the Lord are satisfied with mere sentiments can find in the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit good lessons as to how inquisitive a pure devotee is to know things in the true perfection. So you see, also when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met with Prakashananda Sarasvati, that was also one of the accusations of the Mayavadis, right? They were saying that, devotees are sentimentalists. They just going out chanting and dancing, but they don't really study Vedanta. They don't really study philosophy. But actually, Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest philosophy, is the topmost philosophy presented. You will not find anything higher than the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas, he establishes this because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he established as the Bhagavatam as the topmost praman or the topmost evidence, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we see here, like Maharaj Parikshit as a perfect devotee, he's so inquisitive. So, the devotees are learned. We have the topmost philosophy, and we should learn this philosophy. Some people may be more inclined to go into greater detail, but the basic understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, we must study and learn, because this is the foundation for our spiritual practices. And that learning takes place by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then all questions will be answered. And then we're going to come in a couple of chapters, how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So we should be eager to ask questions. I always find this, that it's just that when I am, if I'm not having any questions, it means I'm not really, studying. If I'm studying the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, naturally there will be questions. Every time I like, even in fact, I was just thinking the other day that one of the criteria for me to know if I am prepared for the teaching, if I'm teaching about Bhaktivaibhava class, okay, I know I have done my preparation well if I have questions, because I'm studying and then I'm actually getting into the what is being presented, and naturally there will be, something that I don't understand. So I'm saying this because someone said one time that it's more important to have a question than to have an answer, right? I never asked him what he meant by that, but this is like a parameter for us, like a you could say like a criteria by which we can see, how we're doing in our spiritual life, in our Krishna consciousness. Spiritual master is pleased when the disciple has got questions. The spiritual master is pleased when the disciple is willing to hear. I remember years ago I heard that Jayapataka Maharaj, he was very eager to hear. He was a very good listener also, and he had questions also. And one time he had some service, he couldn't attend the Bhagavatam class, but then he was getting the recordings and he listened to the recording. And in the recording, Prabhupada praised him. And he said, oh, Jayapataka, I don't think it was Swami at the time. Jayapataka, he likes to hear. He likes to hear. He singled him out. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he singled out also Abai Babu. Why? Because of his eagerness to hear, right? Prabhupada said, well, he only asked Bhaktisiddhanta one question, as far as I know. And that question was, how can I serve you, right? Okay, can I please you? But anyway, you can see by his writings, Prabhupada was very inquisitive, for sure. And he took great amount of trouble to understand the philosophy and present it. And there was one time, I don't know if it was Puri or Vrindavan, where they were in Parikrama, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati disciples, they all went to, on Parikrama, and Bhaktisiddhanta remained back with just a few of his senior disciples, and Prabhupada stayed back. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appreciated Prabhupada. Oh, he likes to hear. I was in Vrindavan once, and Shivaran Swami, it was Akshaya Tritiya, and I was meeting with him in the evenings for a japa walk or an hour or something. And it was a Akshaya Tritiya, and I told him, I said, he said, how are you? I said, well, I'm a little bit not so happy because I was running around all morning. I didn't have time to sit down and read. And he said to me, why do you go anywhere? Why do you go anywhere? He says, you will see more through the eyes of Shastra. So look at me, I don't go anywhere. Anyway, I don't know if I mentioned that before, but okay. So it's just the nature of a devotee is very inquisitive, very inquisitive. Okay, the glories of the Lord and the glories of his devotees combined together comprise the complete knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, we're moving on, text 18. Please also explain what may generally be the common religious affiliations of human society, as well as their specific occupational duties in religion, the classification of the social orders, as well as the administrative royal orders, and the religious principles for one who may be in distress. Now, first sentence in the purport: the common religion for all classes of human beings, regardless of whosoever or whatsoever one may be, is devotional service. Even the animals may be included in devotional service to the Lord. And the best example is set by Sri Vachurangaji or Hanuman, the great devotee of Lord Sri Ram. Next paragraph. Religious affiliation in terms of different countries and cultural circumstances is obviously not the common religion of the human being. Rather, the basic principle is devotional service. Even if a particular type of religious principle does not recognize the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the followers still have to obey the disciplinary principles laid down by a particular leader. Such a leader of a religious sect is never the supreme leader, because such a circumstantial leader comes to the position of leadership after undergoing some penance. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not, however, require to be under disciplinary action to become a leader, as we see in the activities of the Lord. And the conclusion is that, as explained by this book, there is no other religion except the devotional service of the Lord, though this may be presented in different forms. So we see so many different religious practices around the world, but actually what Prabhupada is presenting, that actual Sanatana Dharma is doing devotional service for the Supreme Lord. And we can see elements of this in other faiths and other religious practices. And to the degree that that element is there, to that degree that that religion is genuine. But we can certainly see that certain principles that are followed universally. For example, in other faiths, what is common in other major religions affiliations in the planet, what is common to the practice of devotional service?
Sacrifice is common.
Say again?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay, the concept of sacrifice, right? You make an offering to the Lord, right? Okay. So we can see that it's done maybe executed in a different way, but it's a universal principle. Very good. What else?
Praising the Lord.
Praising the Lord. That's common.
Chanting the holy name.
Chanting the holy name. I mean, we have some of our books that give different references about different quotes from different major religious scripture, how the chanting of the names of God is recommended in the Bible, in the Quran, even Buddha, Sikhs, that the God the Father prayer, sanctified be thy name. King David said that when you chant the name of God from the sunrise to the sunset.
Yeah.
We see that this is, I mean, it's almost like, too obvious. You go the japa, right? The beads. The Christians have the rosary, Muslim have also their chanting beads. You can see that there are many things that are common, and the fact that we are actually, worshiping, adoring a higher self, a higher power, a higher being. So in this way, we can appreciate. I remember another. I don't know if I tell this before in this class, but His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was telling when he was in the Himalayas, and he was meeting every day with this Ram Bhakta. And this Ram Bhakta, he was meeting every day with some kind of religious, Muslim religious leader of some kind. And they were having very deep discussions every day. And Radhanath Maharaj was tagging along with this devotee of Lord Ram. And on one occasion, Radhanath Maharaj, she asked this devotee, he said, well, how, Muslims and Hindu, there is so much quarrel and so much disagreement. How is it that you're meeting with him every day and you're having such kind of loving, intimate discussions about the Lord? And his answer was very interesting. He said, a dog can recognize his master even when even if he's wearing like a suit, or he's wearing a gamsha, or like a swimming trunk or trousers. The dog will recognize his master. And then he said, if I cannot recognize my master when he's dressed differently, then I have to learn so much from the dog. Got it? Is the sound good or is the sound low? Because I've seen Yamasta Mida with the face like, is it, the sound is loud enough or not?
For me, it's loud enough.
Yeah, it's good.
It's
At least
good,
for me,
okay.
good. Sound is good.
It was loud enough, but I missed the point you were making in that last analogy. So that's why I made the face.
The point is that if the dog can recognize his master, despite how the master is dressed, and I cannot, then I have to learn so much from the dog. Right? So I think it's important that we are able to appreciate other people's beliefs and other people's faith. I just came to my mind the last time I came to India. Anyway, I don't know if it was the last time, but I was traveling, and a Muslim was sitting next to me, and he asked for a Jain plate, and I was surprised. I said, well, are you a vegetarian? And he said to me, no, I'm not. I'm a Muslim. No, I said to him, are you Jain? And he said, no, I'm Muslim. I said, oh, what a surprise. Are you a vegetarian? He said, no, I'm not vegetarian. But the problem here in the plane, the meat they serve is not halal. So therefore, I am, asking for this, so, okay. He may not have come to the point of understanding that eating meat is wrong, but has come to understanding that if that meat is not halal, I shouldn't eat it, and is making a sacrifice, So we can appreciate that, and then we have a nice discussion, because afterwards, anyway. But the principle is like this: that we should be able to appreciate other people's for their level of surrender to the Lord. Is common, and that will actually enhance our appreciation of devotional service. I remember one time my father came to visit me in the UK in the Sankirtan house, where I was living in a traveling Sankirtan party, and he came to see me. And my Diksha Guru, he came and he gave a class. And at the end of the class, my father asked, well, this is just the same as Roman Catholic, it's a Catholic religion. It's just the same. And then my Guru, he said, well, if it's the same, why don't you become a Hare Krishna? And why? Because it's not the same also. It is not the same. When we actually study Anyavilasita Sunyang Jnana Karma Dhyanavritan Anukulyena Krishna Nusilanam Bhakti Rutama, we get a clear understanding of what devotional service is. We understand that it's not the same also, but we should be able to find what are the commonalities, if that makes sense. Okay. So we're moving on to a few verses ahead. So now, text 21, it says, please explain unto me how living beings are generated. How are they maintained? How are they annihilated? Tell me also of the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. What are the Vedic rituals and injunctions of the supplementary Vedic rites? And what are the procedures of religion, economic development, and sense gratification? So what are the disadvantages and the disadvantages of devotional service? Unmute yourselves if you know the answer. We hear a lot from a few people, a few devotees. I haven't actually heard them once yet. It'll be nice to hear from those who don't contribute usually as well. Okay, I'm reading in the chat box. If we approach the spiritual master authority and submissively ask questions with service attitude, then we will get answers for all our doubts. And if we adopt attitude of following order, then we'll save them from following our mind, which is okay. So that was in terms of the immunity. Okay, nice way. It says, and if we adopt attitude of following order, then we will save from following our mind, which is root cause of offenses. Very nice. Vira Gopal Prabhu, go ahead.
About disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. I suppose the disadvantage is from a material point of view of becoming unpopular or whatever it is with your own family members, as the case might be. I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage, but it's a material consideration.
Uh-huh.
Or becoming poor because
Krishna takes it all away. Oh, if I become a devotee, I become destitute. Oh, like that whole, Jasyahang agruhinami, that I will, if I give some mercy to my devotee, I'll take everything away and he'll suffer, one calamity after another. Actually, that's not what the verse is referring to. That's why it's interesting that we should read the verse. But it's nice what you're saying also. What are the disadvantages? Actually, there are no disadvantages in Krishna consciousness. I mean, you just said it, you don't think this is a disadvantage. Can we hear from someone else?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare
Go
Krishna.
ahead.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I think that devotional service, it gives you the main aim in life, tells you about the main aim in life and why have you come in this world? What are you? Who is God? I mean, it teaches you, that
So
way.
what are the disadvantages? I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself anymore. Come on, Once I know all these rules and all these regulations, I cannot enjoy myself. There were some devotees who left the movement and they were taking treatments, psychiatric treatments, so that they could enjoy themselves again because, they couldn't. The philosophy was so much in their minds,
Yeah, so
Please.
it gives you higher taste. So naturally, if you have a higher taste, you don't feel attracted towards the material things. You want to go out. I mean, you want to enjoy the higher taste. For that, you keep on practicing. That way you give your life. You sacrifice everything.
Is a disadvantage or an advantage?
It is an advantage, actually, I feel.
Okay, that's the advantage. Good. Okay, thank you. Focusing on the positive. Sriman Nitai. So Sri Ram Nitai. Sri Ram Nitai.
Although it is said that devotional service is like walking on a blade of grass, you have to be very careful when you do an offense. So, in that sense, it may be very difficult, maybe a disadvantage in case we do offense in the devotional service.
Yeah. Now I have to be so careful about avoiding offenses. And if I do commit offenses, I may have to burn in hell for many lifetimes, right? Is it that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? Yamastami Prabhu, what do you think?
The disadvantage is that if you make offenses or fall down, then you have to suffer.
Yeah.
I don't see any disadvantages to it. It's just it's all part of the process to get reinstated in a relationship with the Lord. So every seemingly disadvantage is actually an advantage. I was having a discussion with a devotee a couple of days ago, and he described extremely challenging circumstances he went through in the past 3 years. And he actually was quite discouraged by it, but it doesn't really have to be that way, because these are assets that later on we'll understand how Krishna was behind these different arrangements to help us take deeper shelter in our relationship with him.
Okay.
That's what Tate Nukampam Shukshamikshamano is all about.
Okay. Rasa Shekhar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Nano Pranam. And devotional service is a supreme. It's as good as Lord. So how can there be any kind of disadvantages, even if you don't perfectly perform it? It cannot be. There cannot be any kind of disadvantages. You also
Okay. Thank you, Rasa Shekhar. Murari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Maybe I was thinking about that by the process of devotional service, they arise some anarthas, like pride, lust, these followers, and position, like bhakti anarthas arise. So it can be like in some way
disadvantages, eh?
Yeah.
Is there really a disadvantage of devotional service, you think?
In one sense, yes, because when you became a pride, then you can go out from the devotional service.
But is that caused by bhakti?
Yeah, it's described that they are the cause of bhakti. This not the pride themselves, but when you have some followers, the circumstances in which you are.
But these are things that come up on the path.
Yes.
Just to like Yamasami Prabhu was saying, this is just part of the process. We don't have to follow a trap of these things. This is only, like as we are making advancement on the path of Krishna consciousness, then we are giving a lot more freedom, actually. We're giving a lot more responsibility. And when you have more responsibility, it means that you can make more choices, and you can make more wrong choices also. But that's an advantage in one sense, because now you know what is right and what is wrong. Before before the devotional service, we didn't even know. Like most of us, we came to ISKCON, and most of us, at least myself, I thought I was a nice guy. I thought it was okay. But then after a little practice of Krishna consciousness, Hare Krishna, my God, the heart was coming out here, please, and it becomes overwhelming sometimes, right? But that's an advantage, because we're actually being able to see what's there, and we're cleaning it. It's coming out. It's being cleansed.
Yes, maybe this disadvantage in that sense that when you already know things, you are not able to like you would like to act. You can act actually like freely if you have already knowledge. You must go in some way, because when you have already knowledge, there is no possibility for you to do to act wrongly, or you are pushed.
So that's the disadvantage for those who are not sincere.
Not
sincere. You see, and bhakti is not the cause of these anarthas. The cause of this anartha is our choice. They are already there in the heart. And if we have a tendency, if we have material desires, bhakti, maybe, we may want to facilitate those desires through bhakti. Anyway, I want to move on because we're taking a lot of time here. But I would like to say that, my dear devotees, it seems to me that none of you read the purport. Okay? Because what Prabhupada is talking about, advantages and disadvantages of devotional service. What book is he quoting there? He's quoting the Nectar of Instruction. Practically, is paraphrasing the Nectar of Instruction. And we're talking about advantages and disadvantages is what is favorable for devotional service and what is unfavorable for devotional service. That's how Prabhupada is explaining it. Okay? And it's very nice, actually, the way he's quoting from. So what was the advantages? And being enthusiastic, being patient, being confident, acting according to regulative principles such as Ramanan, Kirtanam, Vishnu, following the previous acharyas, associating with devotees. These are all things that make that they are favorable for the practice of Krishna consciousness. And what is unfavorable for the practice of Krishna consciousness? Over endeavoring, or accumulating more than required, accumulating more than required, atyahara prayasescha, prajalpa nijamagraha. These are all the things that are disadvantageous. Okay, I'll read a little more. Murli Manohar Prabhu wrote, preaching the cult of devotional service is something like declaring war against materialistic life. Could this be what is meant by a disadvantage? Well, it's certainly a fact that those who are, preaching, they are taking on a lot of austerity and a lot of, sacrifice. But to see that as a disadvantage, maybe not. That's not how the devotee sees it. The devotee sees that, this is just, a burden of love, and it's. I mean, how I'm trying to see why will a devotee see that as a disadvantage? Murli Manohar Prabhu.
But perhaps I think you're correct, but it was interesting that it's stated like that devotional service there can be any disadvantages. So I was just reading through the purport, and Prabhupada speaks about preaching in the 3rd paragraph, and it's a wonderful paragraph. He speaks about the challenges which come. So I was thinking, that might be what is being referred to as a disadvantage, that as soon as you become a devotee, then the material world is against you.
Yeah.
So you could look at it in that way.
I mean, and it's nice. We are discussing this, and I let the conversation go on because, we can also try to analyze like this. I mean, as a devotee, I know, for example, that how bad we feel if we do something wrong, in Krishna consciousness, right? That's something that the non-devotee doesn't experience. But that internal fight, we could call that like a disadvantage. Maybe. Yeah.
But as you said, it's a nice disadvantage because it means we're going forward.
Yeah.
Getting out of the material world.
Yeah. Okay, Mahamani. In Madhurya Kadambini, it is said, if one commits offense to a devotee, then no matter what stage he is, he might go even before Shraddha stage. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure why the context of this, but I guess that, there's always risk of going down, but again, prayanal payusa savya kalasmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matayo. No, sorry, but I'm misquoting the verse. What is the verse? In this endeavor, there is no loss, no diminution. That there is no loss, no diminution. Advantage: we have a higher purpose in life. give us a reliable shelter in life. We know the reasons for our suffering. The satisfaction achieved by practicing the process is not achieved elsewhere. Thank you. Very nice. Clarifying the question. Advantage and disadvantage is discharging devotional service. Okay, that's what is explained in the purport. So let's move on. So it's a very, very beautiful purport, by the way. And it's like a nice, you could say, commentary on the Nectar of Instruction. I strongly, strongly advise you to read it. Text 22. Okay,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I ask one thing?
Yeah.
Actually, Asaf Prabhuji was also asking the same thing. You mentioned that that eating less and accumulating less money, and then all these things. So these things, I understand they are the favorable conditions for devotional service, but how these conditions apply as a disadvantage or advantage?
Basically, what is favorable for Krishna consciousness is the advantage of devotional service. And what is unfavorable for the practice of devotional service, that's what is the disadvantage. Okay? And okay. The word used here is samplava and pratisamplava.
Okay, so
the Sanskrit.
So the advantage and disadvantage means favorable and unfavorable to devotional service.
Yeah, that's how Prabhupada explains it.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhupada.
It'll be interesting to see if he's following, with the previous acharyas, how they explain it. But it's a very, very nice explanation, as Prabhupada always does. It makes it very accessible for us. Okay. So we're going to move ahead. Yeah, text 24. O great sage, representative of the Lord, kindly satisfy my inquisitiveness in all that I have inquired from you and all that I may not have inquired from you from the very beginning of my questioning. Since I am a soul surrendered unto you, please impart full knowledge in this connection. So not only all that I have asked you, but even if I have not asked you for something that is very important, you please tell me. Like, sometimes we do interviews, so we can ask the person we are interviewing. We say, well, is there a question that you would like people to ask you and never and haven't asked you yet? Because we don't even know what to ask, right? So even if we don't know what to ask, we can ask this, well, is there something that I should be asking? Is there something that you would like to speak about that is important? Like I remember Brahmananda Prabhu, he was a Prabhupada disciple, senior Prabhupada disciple. He was giving a class on Bhagavad Gita in Vrindavan, many years back. And he said, no one ever asked me what is the most important thing that Prabhupada ever told me. And he was giving a class on Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, verse 1. And basically, he was saying that Prabhupada told him, your life is meant for hearing. Your life is meant for hearing. So I take that this is an instruction given by Prabhupada, not just to Brahmananda, but to all of us. Our lives are meant to hear. But anyway, just the thing about asking questions, whenever we are in the presence of a senior Vaishnava, we can take advantage. Personally, that's how I have developed relationship with senior Vaishnavas, through inquiry. Even I don't know them, but a question is a good way to break the ice, and it's very much in line with our process and our practice. Purport. The spiritual master is always prepared to impart knowledge to the disciple, and specifically when the disciple is very inquisitive. Inquisitiveness on the part of a disciple is greatly necessary for the progressive disciple. Maharaj Parikshit is a typical disciple because he's perfectly inquisitive. If one is not very inquisitive about self-realization, one need not approach a spiritual master simply to make a show of discipleship. Not only is Maharaj Parikshit inquisitive concerning all he has inquired about, but he's also anxious to know about what he has not been able to inquire. Factually, it is not possible for a man to inquire about everything from the spiritual master, but the bona fide spiritual master is able to enlighten the disciple in every way for the disciple's benefit. Clear? All right. Text 25. O great sage, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only, as followed by the previous philosophical speculators. Text 26. O learned Brahmana, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible personality of Godhead, which is flowing down from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to my fasting. And Parikshit Maharaj had been cursed because he was thirsty. You remember? He was thirsty, and he, put that snake around the neck of the sage Shamika Rishi. So, but here we're seeing that through his absorption on, and he's saying actually literally like drinking the nectar. You remember at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Pibhata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhura Horasika Bhubi Babuka. He says, all expert and learned men relish Srimad Bhagavatam, which has emanated from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. So the Bhagavatam is inviting us to relish this nectarian juice. And what this nectarian juice is that rasa of Krishna, the relationship with the devotees, with his devotees, the loving exchanges. So Maharaj Parikshit is the perfect example of this. And when one becomes absorbed in hearing a chant and chanting about Krishna, one is able to transcend the miseries of material existence. And this is such an important principle that it cannot be emphasized enough. And that's the whole purpose of Krishna appearing, performing pastimes, the whole objective of Vyasadeva compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam for our benefit, so that we can actually absorb ourselves in the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. And again, you can say that also we can measure the quality of our Krishna consciousness by how much are we eager to hear. How much, are we still like jaundice? What degree are we jaundice? Prabhupada tells us, we hear the story about that Janmashtami celebration in New Vrindavan. And it was midnight. The arti had finished. Everybody's been fasting the whole day. And everybody's just like waiting to hear the magic song. Sarira Ravidyayal. And then Prabhupada said, let's read Krishna book. Oh, okay. And the sannyasis were all lined up, like with the dandas up, like 2 lines in front of Prabhupada. And the first chapter of the Krishna book is very long. So, the dandas were going like, everybody falling asleep. And then Prabhupada, they came to the end, that's the end of Bhaktivedanta purpose, to the first chapter of Krishna book entitled, and then Prabhupada said, next chapter. Hari-o, Hari-o. And then, but Prabhupada was absorbed. He was relishing hearing Krishna book. And the devotees were thinking about breaking the fast, right? So it is important that we experience this. I remember, so many examples of this, but I remember one time I was in Dubai. I had just been teaching Bhaktivaibhava, in fact, and then we were going to the airport, and then we left late, and there was a huge traffic jam on the way there. You know, it was highly unlikely I was going to make it for my flight. And then the devotee who was taking me there, he was one of my students, and then he inquired about Bhagavatam something, and then we were discussing Bhagavatam on the way there, and I completely forgot about the, you know, not making it, you know, because I was thinking, gosh, you know, if I don't make it, what's gonna, and I literally reached to the airport like 5 minutes before the gate closed, literally. I mean, it was just like last minute. But I discussing the Bhagavatam with my friend, it was it alleviated all the tension and the anxiety. And this is what the great devotees do. We should take shelter of the Bhagavatam, and then we should hear Bhagavatam on a regular basis in the association of the devotees. Prabhupada himself, when he was leaving this world, not only he was translating Bhagavatam, but he was also hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. The devotees were reading to him. So here is Parikshit Maharaj. He's been fasting from water and he's fasting from food. He's expecting that a flying snake is going to kill him, and his mind is fixed on the message. Huh? So beautiful. Sutta Goswami said, thus Shukadev Goswami, being invited by Maharaj Parikshit to speak on topics of the Lord Sri Krishna with the devotees, was very much pleased. So that transcendental happiness and pleasure is both for the speaker and for the hearer. They're both relishing. So here, Sukadeva Goswami is addressed as Brahma Rata, and Maharaj Parikshit is addressed as Vishnu Rata. So I'll read the last paragraph. It says, Sukadeva Goswami was protected by Lord Krishna, and therefore he's known as Brahma Rata. And Sriman Parikshit Maharaj was protected by Vishnu, and thus he's known as Vishnu Rata. As devotees of the Lord, they are always protected by the Lord. It is clear also in this connection that a Vishnu Rata should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Brahma Rata and no one else, because others misrepresent the transcendental knowledge and thus spoil one's valuable time. Text 28. He began to reply the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was first spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Beautiful verse. Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate. He also prepared himself, next text, he also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parikshit had inquired from him. Maharaj Parikshit was the best in the dynasty of the Yadus, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. And that brings us to chapter 9. Fasten your belts, because now we're coming into the answer by Sukadeva Goswami on the first question, which is very, very philosophical. So I hope you did your homework, and it'll be a lot easier to move forward with this. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So chapter 9. This chapter is really nice, actually, and I told you to hear the Prabhupada lecture extensively on these verses, and we get a lot of understanding actually about the Bhagavad, the philosophical foundation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And chapter entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So at the beginning of the chapter, we find a few sections on this chapter. Verses 1 to 8, Sukadeva Goswami explains the history of conditional existence. And then we hear how Lord Brahma, hearing the words tapa tapa, sat down on his lotus seat to engage in tapasya for 1,000 celestial years. Then we're going to hear about a description of Vaikuntha. The Lord gives darshan to Lord Brahma. Now, it is important to remember when this is taking place. Now we're going back from the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami is going to answer Maharaj Parikshit's questions by describing the conversation, not only the conversation, but what took place right at the beginning of the universe, before the creation. Something interesting to know. What happened? When there was nothing but Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma was there bewildered. What took place? So in this chapter, the Lord is going to explain, is going to glorify tapasya, is going to glorify devotional service. He explains that penance is his heart and soul. Then Lord Brahma will, after the Lord gives him darshan and shakes hands with Lord Brahma and smiles, then Lord Brahma will ask 4 questions. And the answers to those 4 questions is what is known as the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Okay. And then after Brahma is being instructed by the Lord, Brahma will proceed with the creation. Okay. I see some questions here. Go back to the chat box. Kindly explain what Srila Prabhupada means in purport of 2:8:26. The snake is also twice born. Do you mind, because I'm running a little bit of time, I just started with this chapter. Do you mind, Jai Radhe, if I answer to you that later? Or maybe I can answer that in the WhatsApp group?
That's okay.
Yeah, because it's not that important right now. I mean, we can look into it later. Okay, so the question was, O learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Is the question understood?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Is it, how do we get, how the spirit soul? We're spiritual by nature. How is it that we are in this material world, that we are, misidentifying with this material body? How did we get here in the first place? It's a bit of like the fall of the jiva question type, right? Okay, so now the answer to this question, I asked you to do some research on that. Okay, so maybe before I go into this, will anybody like to share on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself about what is your, I just find sometimes when the devotees kind of make the research and you have already your answers, and when we explain it and we explore it, it kind of is absorbed, so from that side, will anybody like to answer the question? Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Okay, Mahamani and Madhupati raise her hand. Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
So I said that the soul doesn't have soul is spiritual, and it doesn't have any relationship with the material body. It's just because of the soul's misidentification with the body, just like a dream.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Very good. Well done. Someone else? Tribanga Shyam Das. Okay, we having someone else here. Maharaj Pariksit asked question, and in Sukadeva Goswami answered, in between, how Lord and Brahma came. Okay, well, that's what I just describing, that Okay, let's read the text number 1 that may become a little clearer. The point is that Sukadeva Goswami, in order to answer the question by Parikshit Maharaj, he's going to refer to this historical incident that took place at the beginning of creation. Okay, so I'll read text 1. It says, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. Okay, in fact, Sukadeva Goswami is going to relate the history of, or the historical incident between Lord Brahma and the Lord to answer the second question. The second question was, how is the body of Lord Brahma and the body of the living and the body of the Lord different? So that in order to answer the question, that discussion will be brought into the discussion. Sachitanai Das, due to his misconception under the influence of Maya, he thinks himself as the material body as himself. Okay. Anyone else would like to share something? I'm not able to see all the hands raised because I have this. Oh, okay, here it is. All right, we have a few hands up there. Like, let's see if someone who has not contributed yet has raised their hands. Okay, what about Gopal Ganashraya Prabhu? Would you like to answer?
Yes, Prabhu, same point, like the influence of the Maya, the spirit soul dreams like comes into a dream condition and accepts a material body.
Okay. All right. Veera Gopal Prabhu, thank you.
Because the jiva wanted to enjoy separately from the will of the Lord, that's why he's put into illusion.
Okay. It's based on the desire of the Lord, right? Or the desire of the jiva. All right. Yeah, because the point is, you know, we are here in the material world. We're in a very kind of unfavorable situation, circumstance. How do we get here in the first place? Whose fault is it? Who is responsible for this? Vinay Damodar.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada said that Jiva is coming to the material world due to influence of Maya, but Maya is working under control of Krishna. And Krishna allowed because Jiva used his freedom. He wanted to enjoy. So that is what the main summary of first this sloka. And in second sloka, further it is explained that how we want to enjoy in that way. In Satogun, Rajogun, Tamogun, we are getting 84 lakh of yonis. And in the third main point is said that the conceptions of mind and I. So in a karmi aspect, I think about mind, and when I want to at a jnana level, then myself is everything. Means I want to become God. So this is the whole theme how jiva is being captured in this material world.
Okay, the last I got distracted. Tell me the last sentence. What you said?
Last one is that the concept of mind and I.
Okay, so good. Thank you. We're getting my detail here. Nice.
Yeah, at a karmi level, we are just thinking about myself. I mean, mind. What is mind? And at Jnani level, at Gyan level, we consider ourselves as Supreme Lord. Nice. So that is the highest attack of Maya.
Nice. Okay. Murli Manohar.
Thank you, Prabhu. I was just I was doing a little study, and Prabhupada is quite specific in one place about the cause of the jiva's downfall. One, he mentions that he wants to be just as independent as the Lord, and then he mentions that he desires to become the Lord himself. So therefore, he's put into a condition of dreaming that he is the Lord, or dreaming that he's king. So very specific that we actually wanted to become God or Krishna.
Yeah, and what does it mean to become God?
Well,
because that's what gives the game. That's what gives the answer, and that's what we have to give up. What does it mean to want to be God, to become God?
That you have absolute authority, that there's no one above you, that you're completely independent.
Basically, being completely independent.
Yeah, like Krishna.
And this is a very, very essential difference between the Lord and the living entity. Prabhupada explained that already at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. There are two things that make the Lord different from the living entity. The Lord is Swarat and Avijñat. Avijñat means that he's supremely conscious, and Swarat means he's self-rule. He's fully independent. We cannot change that. And because we want to be fully independent, or at least we want to be independent from God, then we're giving a situation where we can play or think that we are independent, but we're not. And that situation is called the material world. And when we finally decide to actually give up that desire to enjoy separate from the Lord, then we can be reestablished in our natural, normal condition of life, which is to be the eternal servants of God. Vira Gopal Prabhu.
Apologies, that's from previously.
Okay. So, Jai Radhe, that's it, misutilization of our free will. Sri Ram Nitai, mother trying to pacify the crying child who is asking for the moon.
Care.
And the mother shows, I think you're still unmuted, Vira Gopal Prabhu.
Oh my goodness. Apologies.
No problem. Okay, so Sri Ram Nitai is giving an analogy here, okay? An analogy is like the mother tries to pacify the crying child who wants the moon, but he cannot have the moon. So in order to pacify him, he gets a mirror and gives him the reflection. So this material world is just like a reflection of the material world. Can we enjoy the reflection? Like if I cook a big feast and I serve a beautiful plate, and then I put a mirror in front of it, and I say, okay, enjoy the reflection. Can you enjoy it? And this is what we're trying to do. And material existence is like we have to come to that understanding at one point that actually no material situation is going to make me happy. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that this is like a major step in the soul's spiritual journey back home, back to Godhead. When we come to understand that no material situation is going to make me happy. Because by constitution, I'm spiritual. And I cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment. We are just like, dreaming that we can enjoy in the material world. But it is not. We don't belong here. Analogy of the golden mountain, okay? Example of desire to drink blood makes the living entity tiger in next life. Yeah, according to the different desires, we take different forms. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you for, I deeply appreciate that you are doing the homework and studying. It really is very, very good. Thank you. Okay, so here comes the question by the answer. The purport to text number 1 is really superb. So powerful. Have to read the whole thing. But since we don't have time to read the whole thing, I'm just going to read a little bit, okay? But you must read this purport and study very, very carefully. The spirit soul is distinct from the material conception of his life. This is the third line in the purport. But he's absorbed in such a material conception because of being influenced by the external energy of the Lord called Atma Maya. This has already been explained in the first canto. Where in the first canto was explained? Which chapter? Very, very important sections in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have the first 3 verses of the first chapter, and then in chapter 7, I believe it's verses 4, 5, and 6, is Vyasadev's meditation. Narada Muni had instructed Vyasadev to sit down and meditate on the platforms on the pastimes of the Lord, and compile a literature which will focus on that. That's the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Vyasadev, he sat down in meditation, and he saw that. He saw. Anyway, let's pause there for a moment. What he saw, we'll explain in a minute. But the point is that this meditation of Vyasadev explains the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and is being referred here by Prabhupada in the purport. And then we have the Chatusloki Bhagavatam, which is coming also in this chapter. Very, 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 essential. So I hope that you read the first verse. Now, here I made a little kind of summary of what is being explained in these first 3 verses. Okay. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? What is the cause? The cause is being influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? Which is expert at doing the impossible. Because the living entity actually does not come in touch with matter. We think we have come in touch with matter. But the living entity, being spiritual, is never touched by matter. It's just covered. It appears to be covered by it. It's kind of difficult to assimilate in one sense. But what is meant by this is that the living entity's nature, being spiritual, is eternal. We eternally spiritual. We never become matter. We're not touched. We think we are. And because of this identification with matter, which is the cause of the problem, we have to appear in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. This is a result. Okay? This is text 2. Okay? The living entity is somehow attracted to the material energy, is attracted to enjoy separate from the Lord, and the Lord creates a situation for him. And in that situation, which is called the material world, the living entity transmigrate from one body to another, to another, to another. And to become free from this so-called, from this material conception of life, one has to give up 2 misconceptions. Okay? The conception of I am the enjoyer, and this world is meant for my enjoyment. This is the disease. And this is what Vyasadev he saw in his meditation. If we remember, okay, so the cause is given, O king, unless when it's influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. Okay, that's the cause. Now, sections from the purport. Why will the Lord bewilder the living entities? You could say, and that's, we blame Krishna.
Prabhuji, sorry to interrupt. May I just note the last point of the previous slide? Thank you, Prabhuji.
This is just first verse. It's the first verse, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Okay. So why, this is why the Lord put me in this situation? Why do I have to suffer? Why so much suffering in the material world? Why didn't the Lord create a perfect world? I mean, if there is a God and he's the creator of this world, he's a terrible designer because he made an imperfect world with so much suffering. What kind of God he is? Why will the Lord create a world where there is hunger, where there is abuse, where there is violence, there is greed, there is so much suffering? Well, here comes the answer. The Lord wishes that every living entity be in his pure consciousness and thus be engaged in his loving service. That is their constitutional position. Okay, that's fundamental. Okay. But because the living entities are partially independent, they may not be willing to serve the Lord. Instead, they desire to become equal to the Lord, although they are not fit for it. Like a person who thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualification, when the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he's put in a condition of dreaming that he is a king. Okay, so you want to enjoy, you want to come to the material world, and we are taking so many roles. Like, one way to think of this material existence is like a drama, and sometimes there have been cases where the actors they identify themselves so much with the the role they were playing in the drama, they became a little schizophrenic and crazy because they forgot who they were really before, who they were really are. Sorry, my English. Who they really are before taking part in the drama. Okay, so like like I go into playing the drama, and then someone may kill me in the drama, but I know that when the curtains close, I can take the knife out of my belly and I carry on with my life, being who really I am. But so this material existence is like this. We're taking different roles, but it's not who we really are. And the analogy of the moon is being given. So now, what was the meditation of Vyasadeva? Famous verse, I say, very important. It's actually verse 4, 5, and 6. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apasyat purusham purnam mayam chatadapashrayam. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaged by linking in devotional service without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead with its external energy, which was under full control. So when Vyasadeva, he sat down in meditation and he saw the Supreme Lord, and along with the Supreme Lord, he saw the external energy. And the external energy is under his full control. Okay, it's not independent, it's acting under his direction. Now, what's the problem? Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manutenartham tatkritam chapipadyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product. Okay, that's the problem. Being influenced by the material nature, one identifies with the material body. And because of this bodily identification, I have to undergo so many reactions of material miseries. Now, the solution, the material anarto pasyaman sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaye lokasya janato vitvans chakre sattvata samhitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled the Vedic literature, this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the Supreme Truth, Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? So it's 4 minutes to 3. I have to finish at 3 o'clock today on time. So I'm not going to be able to answer your questions now. We're going to continue with this topic tomorrow. Okay? So just in case, because I saw a few hands up, maybe they are down now. I don't see any hands up now. We just discussing the topic until 3 o'clock and we'll complete tomorrow. But here is Prabhupada's lecture. So when someone asks, when did we come into contact with the material nature? The answer is that we have not come into contact. By the influence of the external energy, we think we are in contact. Actually, we're not fallen. We cannot be fallen. We have simply created a situation in which we think we're fallen. Actually, Krishna has given us that situation because we wanted to imitate him. Krishna has given us an opportunity. All right, you want to imitate me? You want to be an imitation king on the stage? So feel like this, play like this, do like this. People will applaud. Oh, what a very nice king. So our contact with matter is just like a dream. We are not fallen, therefore at any moment we can revive our Krishna consciousness. We become liberated as soon as we understand, I have nothing to do with matter, I am simply Krishna's eternal servant. Sometimes when a fearful dream becomes intolerable, we break the dream. Similarly, we can break the material connection at any moment as soon as we wake up to Krishna consciousness. Okay? So Muli Manohar Prabhu wrote that there is an elaborate commentary on these verses in the beginning of Tattva Sandarbha. Yes, it's a very powerful resource. If you have time and you want to go deeper into the topic, Gopi Paranadana Prabhu translated the Tattva Sandarbha. I will say that for Bhaktivaibhava students, it's a must to read this book. And this is what I'm saying, that these verses are important. The Goswamis have explained. I guess that Muli Prabhu, you're referring to verses in chapter 7, right?
Yes, yes, the
first canto.
Srila Vyasadeva in trance. That's what it's.
Yeah, it's a very detailed explanation, and we can study the Bhagavatam. Once we grasp the meaning of these specific verses, then we can understand the Bhagavatam through the lens of those verses, like Chatushloki, chapter 7 of the first canto, verses 4, 5, and 6, first 3 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. So I'm going to stop here because it's the time and respecting the agreement with the devotees. But today I will not have questions. I have to finish myself tomorrow. I don't have also extra time. I have to finish at 3 o'clock. Let's just finish with a Prabhupada quote. Okay. Oops. Sorry. I went back. Here it is. But these things are all nonsense. Simply dreaming. When you dream, when the dream is gone and everything in the dream is finished, no more tiger, no more jungle. Similarly, as long as the body continues, one may think, I am responsible, I'm a responsible leader, I am this, I am that. But as soon as the body is finished, these ideas are gone. Just think of your past life. Okay, I'll leave it there. We just start tomorrow with that quote because it's time. So thank you very much. Tomorrow we'll continue with this, and if you get time to go through these verses again, and we have covered actually quite a bit. This is like the main crunch of the main meaning of this answer is that we have not really come in contact with the material energy. We think we have, and it's due to our desire. The living entity has a desire to enjoy separation from the Lord, and therefore we are put into a situation. Okay. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granta Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Janitai Gaura Premanande. Thank you, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai, Vanchakalpataru Vischa, Kripa Sindhu Devacha, Patitanam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Thank you. See you tomorrow, 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
11.
11? No, what time? Sorry, 1 o'clock. Sorry, 1 o'clock.
Will we cover the rest of chapter 9 tomorrow?
No way. No way. Tomorrow we'll do the exercises. Chatushloki is next week. That's chapter 9 also.
All right, so we'll do the other 2 exercises.
I'm aiming for that. Let's see if time allows us. Yes. Okay. Because it depends how much. I think we will. Okay, but it's a little bit of scope. Maybe yes, maybe not. Okay, but I'm aiming for it. Okay, and then next week we start with Czechoslovakia. That's my plan. It just depends on the questioning and this and that. But we're on target. We're okay. We're on time.
All right.
Okay. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Haribo.
Thank